Hello, gorgeous soul friends. Welcome to my channel, Madame DeVaux. Thank you so much for tuning in and for allowing me into your wondrous experience today. So I wanted to make this video because I'm getting real tired of the so-called spiritual community and this holier-than-thou mentality that a lot of people seem to have. Occult suppression is what we're going to be discussing in this video, and it's a pretty big issue. You often hear about suppression from the media and all of that jazz, but I'm not going to be talking about the mainstream media in this video, because we all know that they're on their bullshit. I don't need to speak on it. Most people, I think, are pretty much aware that the mainstream media is a bunch of horseshit. I'm gonna be calling out the spiritual community itself, because for a group that considers itself to be humble and all-loving and understanding, there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens here, and I'm getting real fucking tired of it. The suppression often happens from one of two places. There's the very obvious suppression that has been present for thousands of years and maybe even longer, which is, of course, related to greed. And then there's this more subtle suppression that happens within the community, which is rooted in greed, but it's disguised as this care for occult information, claiming that keeping the knowledge of our multidimensionality a secret is what's best for humanity, that humanity is unworthy. And this way of thinking made sense at one point, but it's becoming increasingly outdated as more and more people open themselves up to the idea that there's more than just this material realm. Everything in existence unfolds in a perfect accordance to the will of the divine. The structure of our universe is flawless. Like, nothing happens by accident. Nothing is out of place. We are living in a highly advanced organic computer that makes zero mistakes. I kind of want to just drop my 2 cents into this piggy bank and give my perspective as to why I think that this information should be more widespread and why gatekeeping over centuries has pretty much led to the primarily materialist Western world that is unfit for the human spirit. The reason that so many people are depressed, so many people are hooked on substances, unfulfilled, and just plain lost. As I was saying, this gatekeeping made sense at one time, like 300 years ago, when people were getting dragged into the streets and executed publicly for partaking in what was labeled as witchcraft. And even just 50 years ago, occult practice was still something that was relatively taboo. And I'd even say up until around 5 to 10 years ago, it kind of remained in the shadow of the mainstream. Even in the span of time since I began my awakening in 2013, I've seen so many people that I never thought would even bat an eye towards mysticism starting to open themselves up to it. It's clear that there is some kind of inspiration that's causing people to seek this out. We're all connected to the same unified database of cosmic information. None of us are exempt. There's this push towards all things deemed occult, and I think that's why tarot and astrology are on such a quick rise, because these are aspects of the occult that have been kind of on the forefront for some time now. Like, when people think occult, they'll think of zodiac signs or of tarot cards, you know what I mean? That's all people know. So that's kind of why these particular topics are on the rise, because people are feeling inspired to seek this stuff out, but they don't really know what they're looking for. But people will continually feel inspired to seek deeper as time progresses and as this information becomes more widespread. Humanity is obviously very ready for this information because of the simple fact that there is an undeniable awakening going on right now. More and more people are feeling inspired to seek out ancient wisdom now than ever before. And we're becoming increasingly connected to our higher nature. And even if you don't resonate with the traditional label of spiritual awakening, and that particular label is too out there for you, you cannot deny the fact that humans are more benevolent than ever before. Like, we're more peaceful than ever. We're more accepting than ever before, more mindful. And even with all of the world's problems, we're still living in the most peaceful and safest time period in all of known history. And the consciousness renaissance doesn't just express itself in our behaviors, it's also being expressed in our interests too. Like, more people are taking an interest in the arts, mythology, philosophy. The importance of these feminine aspects of society are becoming recognized. The truth of our multidimensionality is inherent to our being. So this is something that is programmed within us. This is knowledge that is already present within every single human being, but is just being overlooked because we haven't even been taught that it's there. But these roots are beginning to crack through these structures that have been built to kind of suppress it and hide it. Humanity is essentially going through a test. When we devolved, we were given a certain amount of time to ascend to the next octave of consciousness. And we basically only have a certain amount of time to ascend and progress as a species Because if not, we will collectively manifest a grim reality that could pretty much be equated to a literal hell on earth. I think a really great depiction of this idea is present within Back to the Future 2, when Marty goes to the alternate timeline where Biff takes over, and then there's like crime everywhere, like everybody's, everything's on fire. It's this nightmarish version of Marty's hometown. So it's kind of a similar concept in the sense that we could potentially create a really low vibrational reality for ourselves, because as a collective, we have a lot of power. And that's why there's this whole agenda to keep people in a state of fear and all of that, but that's a fucking rabbit hole in and of itself, so that's like for a separate video. Our mission here is to sow the seed of self-awareness into the minds of others so that they can come to their own personalized interpretation of this ancient wisdom. Of course, this mission is also expressed on a micro level as well, with all of the individual missions of service that you've assigned for yourselves, whether it's making music or starting your business, or even just doing volunteer work. Big or small, these inherent passions and callings that you feel are creating a better future for humanity, regardless of whether it's spiritually related or not, because everything is inherently spiritual. Like, I don't even like to use the label spiritual, but I just don't really know what else to use because they're all just words at the end of the day. But, everything inherently is spiritual. So yes, boo-boo, even your nail business, that is spiritual. Like, you doing hair, you helping people build their credit score, like, that's spiritual. Like, everything in nature is spiritual. Whatever it is that you feel inherently called to do, that is your spiritual purpose. Because everything is spiritual. It doesn't have to be religious-based or in the niche of spirituality. Like, no. By you just finding your fulfillment with whatever it is that you want to do with your life, that is your mission. Literally just to follow your dreams and follow your passions. Because by doing that, you emit this kind of, like a wave of energy that's going to be picked up by other people, which is going to subtly inspire them to fulfill their passions, and then the cycle continues. Like, it's just this kind of domino effect that we're experiencing. There's this activation that's going on right now within humanity. We're improving our consciousness. It's very similar to an iPhone upgrade. We're receiving these upgrades in cosmic information that is going to contribute to advancements in organic technology and medicine that we never even deemed possible. And I'm talking to the point where disease becomes a thing of the past and we drastically increase our lifespans organically. It's possible, guys. Like, because of the fact that we can even conceptualize this information, it's possible. And if you think that this sounds like a bunch of science fiction mumbo jumbo bullshit, science fiction has time and time again inspired science fact. And you really have to get yourself out of that limited ass frame of mind, because ultimately that's what's holding us back. And as a result of this suppression, I really do think that there is, on the other end of the spectrum, an agenda to kind of push like anti-spiritualism and complete disbelief in anything that's non-material, which is extremely contradicting because genuine science is moving down the path towards non-materialism, and it's literally bridging itself with ancient spirituality. Materialist-based scientism is inherently anti-science. Like, it contradicts itself in so many ways, but that's not what this video is about. Let's kind of segue back to what I was talking about and get back on track, because this video isn't even really directed so much at that group as it is at the people who are aware of our multidimensionality but somehow feel that they're better or more deserving to have an understanding of this information than anyone else. Like, we are all a singular consciousness being expressed through these different personalities and physical forms. None of us are better. None of us are worse. We're all just different. Kind of like when you shine a flashlight and you place different colored lenses over that light, the base light doesn't change, but it will express different qualities depending on the lens that's placed over it. And it's the same thing with our expression. These bodies and personalities are just different filters for life force to experience itself as a sentient being. I'm you and you're me. Like, there's no better, there's no worse. Better or worse is just a man-made construct. We often equate better or worse to like socioeconomic status or looks or, anything. People compare themselves in all kinds of ways. This is something that is slowly going to break apart as well as esoteric wisdom begins to really root itself in our conscious mind. The idea of initiating people into this knowledge is a man-made construct that is being broken with the mass awakening that's happening and that's going to continue to happen over the course of this lifetime. It's no human's job to decide who is ready to delve into this information and who's not. The divine decides who is ready when that spark of interest and that spark of inspiration to seek it out is activated. That's when you are chosen, because this knowledge ultimately chooses you. We don't have time to initiate people into these states of awareness anymore or to turn them away from this information. People are activating at a rapid rate, and torch holders are crucial. Now, when it comes to teaching people this information and taking on a leadership role for that matter, there is a level of initiation that's required for that. But it's the same way that not just anybody can teach an algebra class. Like, not just any average Joe can walk into a college level algebra course and teach the class. There's a level of expertise that's required in order to take on that position. But I believe that better regulation of all of this stuff will come in time as the subject of the occult becomes more accepted as something to be taken seriously and not just like new age woo-woo, you know what I mean? Which will also happen as the awakening prevails. And that's why withholding this information is so detrimental, because by gatekeeping, we're standing in the way of the single key to saving this planet. Because just as we are connected to one another, we're connected to Earth too. And the more that people tap into these higher states of awareness and pursue a path to self-actualization, she too ascends and heals herself as a result. You know, she's just a body and we're her microbes. By following our passions, we're literally healing the planet. Like, by accessing this ancient wisdom, even if you don't feel called to teach others about it, like, not everybody is called to the path of being a spiritual teacher. And that's completely fine. But just existing with the ancient wisdom as a part of your being, like, you are healing the planet. And understanding the ancient wisdom and applying it is the missing link to solving every single problem on planet Earth. I am not joking when I say that. I'm not exaggerating. We literally have the power to collectively manifest higher timelines for ourselves. World peace is possible for the single fact that we can even conceptualize such a thing. Lots of people who gatekeep, I think, are coming from a good place though. Like, I see the perspective in the sense that a lot of people are really just wanting to protect this information from those who are going to use it for acts that are so self-serving that they impede on the well-being of life around them. But the thing is, this wisdom is already in the hands of some pretty damaged people who are exploiting you and impeding on your well-being every single day, and you don't even know it's happening. That's how deep this runs. By gatekeeping, we're further perpetuating this abuse. Reverting back to my point earlier, we exist within this macrocosm that makes no mistakes. So including the events that we perceive as negative, they're really just what you would call a necessary evil. Because yin can't exist without yang. Like, there is an element of darkness that's necessary in order to push growth forward. We are not the ones who get to decide who has access to occult information and who doesn't. The divine does. That is the only thing that gets to determine who gets to access this information. And there's natural laws in place that deal with people who misuse occult wisdom. And that's even more of a reason why widespread education is so important in relation to this subject, because people are less likely to make detrimental decisions if they know what they're getting themselves into, if they have a solid understanding of the information itself. Knowledge is power, and also a basic human right. So to tell another human that they're not worthy or deserving of knowledge is rooted in so much ego. The one thing that spiritual people claim to have transcended, they're working from a place of ego. Like, so many people are blinded by their ego. And there's nothing wrong with the ego. I just want to kind of like state that too. And I'll make another video talking about the ego because there's a lot I have to say on that subject as well. A lot of people demonize the ego. A lot of spiritual people demonize the ego. But it's not even so much about breaking down the ego, it's just about transcending it and not letting it blind you, right? Not letting it be another filter that affects the decisions that you make, that affects your treatment of someone, that blinds you to that single truth that we are all one. So, this community just holds so much responsibility. Like, I don't think people quite yet grasp how important energy workers are going to become over the course of the next decade and beyond. We, of all people, need to be checking ourselves the most because we are guiding lights for others. The next 20 to 50 years are going to be some of the most memorable in the entirety of humanity's history. And it's already happening. I mean, it's been happening since 2020 began. This time period is critical because we are at the forefront of major societal reform towards mainstream exploration into the non-material. We are the pioneers. It's happening over the course of the next decade. I don't think people understand how much spiritualism is going to take a hold of the mainstream and how much it's going to really integrate itself into the norm. As I mentioned, ancient wisdom seeps into every mind, and it's up to us, the trailblazers, to help others ground into reality their own personalized understanding of the wisdom that they're channeling. That's how we create a better world. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video because it's something that has been frustrating me. I've seen quite a few people who get really upset about this information being on YouTube and being public and stuff like that. But if you want my opinion, y'all are just a bunch of Agent Smiths, okay? But yeah, I just thought I would make a video on this topic because there's just some things that I've noticed over the course of my span teaching on YouTube about this stuff, and I just wanted to address it because I do think it is a big problem, and I think that it's something that's not being talked about enough. Like, I think that more creators should be talking about this. More people should be checking themselves and checking others as well. Like, we have to hold each other accountable, you know, and hold ourselves accountable at the end of the day. And it's normal to find yourself in that ego. You know, you see people who once maybe ridiculed you at some point, and now they're getting into this stuff. Like, that's life. You know what I mean? Like, it's annoying. Yes, I understand. Like, it's really frustrating. Once again, we are not anybody to turn anyone away from this information because it's not our job. It's not our job to determine who gets to explore this information and who doesn't. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video. So I hope that this resonated in some way, shape, or form. Maybe this gives you some kind of like confirmation. Maybe you have somebody around you who's gatekeeping and kind of being a dick about this. Maybe this validates your exploration into the occult. So always strive to seek deeper. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.